美凤姐，哦，我留你足久啊。
追我的人很多，没人去给掉，因为我都啉正港的优蛋白，补体素优蛋白 EX222，增肌关键，磨弱血层，促进新陈代谢，看笑脸爱保养哦。
来，继续补体素优蛋白 EX， 强化配方，增肌 Yes。
马上点击资讯栏连结，跟美凤姐一起喝补体素优蛋白
EX。Morning, afternoon, or night, whatever time zone you're in, welcome back to Sip&Talk. We are so glad to have all of you Sip&Talkers hanging out with us today. Now, Joe, right off the bat, I have a somewhat mysterious scenario for you.
Oh boy. All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so you're standing right at the crossroads of heaven and hell. There are two demons blocking the path. One always lies and one always tells the truth. But, you don't know who is who. You can only ask one person a single question to find the road to heaven. What is it?
Oh, come on. That riddle is ancient. It's like mathematically solved already.
Okay, what's the answer?
You just point to one of the demons and ask, if I asked the other demon which way is heaven, what would they say? And whatever path they point to, you literally just walk the exact opposite way.
And why does that work?
Because mathematically, the answer you get will always be a lie. So you just do the opposite.
Bingo. You are very quick on your feet today.
Ha.
But, I want you to look at the actual mechanism behind that answer. You didn't, waste time trying to analyze their body language. Right?
No, I mean, that would be totally pointless.
Exactly. You didn't try to figure out who was the liar and who was the honest one. You just bypassed all that surface-level noise and targeted the foundational logic underneath. You let the truth and the lie cancel each other out.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. That's exactly how first principles thinking works.
Yes. That is the core theme we are unpacking today, first principles.
It is honestly the mental framework that completely separates people who just, copy what already exists from the people who actually rewrite the rules of reality. And we've got a massive roadmap for you all today.
Yeah, we are covering a lot of ground.
We really are. We're looking at the brand new trillionaire era, the crazy physics behind space-based AI data centers, and the literal battle for Earth's power grid.
Plus, the economics of AI tokens and how all this foundational logic is driving major geopolitical shifts globally. So, buckle up.
Right, so let's start with how our brains naturally want to work. Usually we do something called reasoning by analogy.
Which basically means we just look at what other people are doing.
Right, exactly. We see what exists and we try to do it maybe 10% better, 10% cheaper. We project the current form of a thing into the future instead of looking at its actual function.
I think the best historical example of this is the suitcase. It is wild when you really think about it.
Oh, the Roman soldier example. Yeah, go into that.
So back in ancient Rome, soldiers carried these incredibly heavy leather messenger bags. And at the exact same time, you had chariots and wagons rolling around on wooden wheels everywhere.
Right, wheels were totally ubiquitous.
But for literally thousands of years, nobody thought to combine the bag and the wheel. People just kept making slightly better bags.
They added, zippers in the 1930s?
Yeah, zippers in the 30s, nylon in the 60s. Everyone was totally obsessed with the form of the bag. They forgot the actual function was just moving heavy things efficiently.
It's crazy. It wasn't until 1970 that a guy named Bernard Sato saw a worker rolling a heavy machine on a skid at an airport, and he finally invented the rolling suitcase.
Thousands of years of people carrying heavy bags just because no one deconstructed the problem.
And that deconstruction, like breaking things down to the absolute physical truths and building back up, that is the definition of first principles thinking.
Which brings us to the historic market earthquake we just saw in June 2026.
The SpaceX IPO.
Yes. SpaceX officially launched its IPO. The valuation hit a staggering $2.5 trillion, and Elon Musk just officially became the world's first trillionaire.
A $1.3 trillion net worth. I mean, the scale of that is almost difficult to comprehend.
It doesn't even feel like real money at that point.
It really doesn't. Get this. Musk's wealth increased more in a single day, jumping by about $164 billion, than Warren Buffett's entire lifetime accumulation of wealth.
Wait, really? His whole life?
Yeah, Buffett's lifetime accumulation sits around $148 billion. Musk beat that in 24 hours.
That is just mind-blowing. But let's, examine that clash of financial philosophies. Because I think a lot of you listening right now are probably wondering if this is just a massive untethered bubble.
Sure, because Buffett is the ultimate moat investor. He wants steady, predictable cash flow. He wants businesses where you can map out consumer behavior 10 years into the future.
Right, like Coca-Cola or insurance. But Wall Street is calling this new phenomenon the Elon premium.
Yeah, the Elon premium. It's this idea of pricing a company based on an individual's proven ability to rewrite physics. But is that sustainable? I mean, SpaceX was burning billions not that long ago.
It's definitely dividing the financial world. Some economists look at it and just see a momentum-driven illusion. But if you look at the underlying math of the disruption, it's pretty undeniable.
Well, let's break that math down. When SpaceX started, traditional aerospace giants like Boeing were charging around $65 million for a rocket.
Because they reasoned by analogy. Rockets have always been ridiculously expensive, so they just assumed they will always be expensive.
Exactly. But Musk looked at it like a physicist. He asked, what is a rocket actually made of?
Which is just raw materials, right? Aerospace grade, aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, and carbon fiber.
Right. And if you go and buy those raw materials on the commodity market, they only account for about 2% of the typical price of a rocket.
2%. So where was the other 98% going?
It was all middleman bloat. It was inefficient bureaucracy. And, the completely bizarre industry standard of taking a multi-million-dollar rocket and throwing it into the ocean after one single use.
It's like throwing away a Boeing 747 after one flight from New York to LA. It makes zero sense. And he applied that exact same foundational logic to Tesla, too.
Oh, absolutely. A decade ago, the entire auto industry insisted electric cars would never, ever scale.
Because the battery packs were too expensive.
Yeah. They cost around $600 per kilowatt hour. It was financially impossible to make a mass market car. But Musk just broke the battery down to its raw elements.
Carbon, nickel, aluminum, polymers.
Right. He checked the prices of those metals on the London Metal Exchange and found the absolute physical limit of the cost was roughly $80 per kilowatt hour.
So everything between $80 and $600 was just inefficient engineering waiting to be dismantled.
Exactly. By looking only at the physics, you can drop the cost of space travel and electric vehicles to just a fraction of the historical norm.
But the ambition isn't stopping at just launching rockets anymore, which is wild. The latest development is that SpaceX is planning to move AI infrastructure directly into orbit.
Space-based AI data centers. It sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It really does. But the reason why is deeply tied to a physical crisis happening right here on the ground. Earth is literally running out of power.
Yeah, we have completely transitioned from fighting a semiconductor chip war to fighting a foundational energy war.
And this isn't just theory. Laura Sweat, the chair of FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, just gave a very stark reality check in a recent interview.
What did she say?
She admitted the aging electrical grid in the U.S. absolutely cannot handle the bottomless energy demands of tech hyperscalers.
And for anyone listening who might not know, hyperscalers are those massive tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. They're building data centers the size of small cities right now.
Right, and they suck up so much electricity that it's physically breaking the local grids. So the mechanics of putting a data center in space start to make a weird kind of sense.
Well, yeah, you don't have to pay for land in space. And you have access to unfiltered 24/7 solar energy. There's no nighttime if you position it right.
But the real hurdle is cooling, right? Because space is a vacuum.
Exactly. A vacuum is actually an incredible insulator. You can't just blow a fan on a server to cool it down up there. They literally have to use massive radiators to bleed the heat off into the dark side of orbit.
And then use laser links to beam the data back down to Earth with super low latency. It sounds insane, but it's becoming a logistical necessity because the terrestrial grid is just failing.
Which forces a really critical question for the average citizen. If these hyperscalers are sucking up all the local power to train their AI models, are normal people about to see their electric bills skyrocket?
That is exactly what everyone is terrified of. Are we going to pay for this before we even see a single dime of actual productivity from AI?
Well, FERC is intervening with an unprecedented mandate to try and stop that.
Yeah, they've issued a strict 30-day deadline. They're requiring all the regional energy markets to submit plans for handling this massive new load.
But the really important part is the ratepayer protections they are instituting, right?
Yes, exactly. They are forcing the hyperscalers to be completely transparent about their load demands, and they are demanding the tech companies themselves fully cover the cost of any grid upgrades.
So they are building a firewall. They want to make sure the average citizen doesn't end up subsidizing big tech's infrastructure inflation.
Because that physical upgrade to the grid requires millions of tons of copper, steel, and new transformers.
And when you suddenly need that much physical material all at once, you don't just strain the local power lines, you strain the entire macro economy.
Which is why this infrastructure spend is rippling all the way up to the Fed. The new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, is actively shaking up policy to deal with it.
He's taking a totally different approach than the last guy. He is ditching forward guidance.
Right, which is basically the practice of telling the market exactly what the Fed plans to do months in advance. Warsh doesn't want to do that. He prefers to let the raw economic data dictate the moves.
And honestly, the data is running incredibly hot right now. The dot plot from the committee shows potential rate hikes by the end of the year.
Driven in part by core PCE hitting 3.3%.
Yeah, and PCE, or personal consumption expenditures, is the Fed's preferred measuring stick for inflation. It tracks what regular people are actually paying.
水凤姐，哦，我留你足久了。
追我的人很多，没人去给到，因为我拢啉正港的优蛋白，补体素优蛋白 EX222，增肌关键，磨弱血层，促进新陈代谢，看少年爱保养哦。
来，继续补体素优蛋白 EX， 强化配方，增肌 Yes。
马上点击资讯栏连结，跟美凤姐一起喝补体素优蛋白 EX。
Regular people are actually paying out of pocket for goods and services.
And a reading of 3.3% is way above their 2% target.
Mm-hmm.
So the capital expenditure on AI data centers is absolutely creating short-term inflationary pressure on everyone.
But why is AI suddenly drawing so much more power than it was, say, a year ago?
Because the entire paradigm of how we use the technology has fundamentally shifted. We aren't just typing text prompts into a chatbot to get a cookie recipe anymore.
No, we have fully entered the era of autonomous AI agents.
Which completely rewrites the monetization models. Think about it. A year ago, the industry relied on seat-based subscriptions.
Right. A company pays $20 a month, and one employee gets access to the tool. It's capped.
But autonomous agents operate constantly in the background. They execute complex, multi-step tasks across a dozen different software platforms while you sleep.
And they consume massive, massive amounts of compute tokens to do that. So the industry has shifted to usage-based monetization.
Anthropic's Claude Code is the perfect example of this. The token consumption is so intensely high for those agents that it's pushing the company toward a $47 billion run rate.
$47 billion. That creates a massive collision course with corporate budgets, though.
Oh, totally. Companies allocated their annual AI funds based on that old $20 a month model. And now they are just bleeding cash.
Look at Uber. They literally burned through their entire annual AI budget in just 4 months.
4 months. So what did they do?
They had to hit the emergency brake. They capped all their employees at a maximum AI spend of $1,500 a month.
But here is the massive psychological trap with those budget caps. It creates something called the known ROI bias.
Okay, explain that for everyone listening. What happens when you tell a worker they only have a limited budget for AI tokens?
Human psychology takes over. They become incredibly risk-averse. If you know you only have $1,500 of compute to spend, you are definitely not going to try to build a complex, revolutionary workflow.
Because it might fail and just waste your entire budget for the month.
Exactly. You're going to use those tokens to write your routine emails and summarize basic Word documents because the return on investment is guaranteed. It completely kills innovation.
That is such a dangerous trap. They only use it for safe, incremental productivity, but that defeats the entire purpose of a $1 trillion infrastructure build-out.
It really does. If employees are too scared to run high-risk, high-reward experiments, the companies won't see the massive productivity gains that were promised.
And if they don't see the gains, they'll just keep those budget caps in place. It's a vicious cycle. It could literally stall the whole economic engine of AI.
So the only way to break that cycle is a massive systemic shift in how we approach AI education.
Yeah, teaching people prompt engineering is just an obsolete concept at this point.
Totally. In an agentic world, workers need to learn how to manage and supervise a whole fleet of virtual agents. It's essentially management training now, not tech training.
And if we don't aggressively close this education gap, If we don't teach employees how to confidently generate outsized value token consumption, it will plateau.
And if it plateaus, the hyperscalers' revenue models will collapse under the weight of their own incredibly expensive data centers.
It just really emphasizes how interconnected the underlying physics of our economy are right now. I mean, from the cost of copper on the metal exchange to the power grid, all the way to the psychology of an employee managing a virtual agent.
It's all connected by first principles. And if we apply that exact same framework to the global stage, we see it actively reshaping geopolitics too.
Now, to be completely clear up front, as we analyze these global developments, we are looking strictly from an objective international perspective here.
Right. We aren't taking any political sides. We're just mapping out the strategic logic at play.
A prime example of this is the new U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding that just took effect.
On the surface, the market reacted with immense relief to that news. The U.S. ended its maritime blockade, the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopening, and oil prices immediately drop to around $75 a barrel.
It looks like a massive win for global stability, right?
It does. But applying first principles means looking past that surface-level market relief. Mona Yakubian at CSIS pointed out the foundational logic here.
What did she say?
She noted that while the immediate tension is paused and sanctions on oil and banking are lifting, the absolute core issues remain completely unsolved.
You mean the expansion of nuclear capabilities in the ballistic missile programs?
Exactly. Those core issues haven't changed at all. They have a very tight 60-day window to negotiate a final deal, but the foundational conflicts have just been temporarily medicated.
It's basically treating the symptom instead of the disease. Meanwhile, on the domestic front, we saw another major strategic maneuver based on race supply chain logic.
Oh, you're talking about the Trump announcement.
Yeah. Trump just announced a massive collaboration between Intel and Apple to design and manufacture semiconductor chips entirely within the United States.
That's a fundamental shift in strategy. It's looking at the raw inputs of modern technology and realizing that relying on heavily bottlenecked international shipping lanes is just a massive structural vulnerability.
Right. Bringing the physical creation of technology closer to home just eliminates the geographical middleman. It's first principles applied to international trade.
But, you don't have to be a nation state or a trillion-dollar tech company to apply this framework.
No, not at all. It works just as powerfully for old-school, traditional businesses fighting for survival.
I love this example. Let's talk about Jintai Industry. They are a 45-year-old traditional lock manufacturer based in Taiwan.
A super traditional metal-bending business. They could have easily kept fighting the same brutal B2B battles, right? Just trying to slightly undercut their competitors on bulk manufacturing orders.
But instead, they completely deconstructed their business model. They looked at the actual physical reality of their local market.
Which is really unique in Taiwan.
Yeah. Because importing expensive, high-end European smart locks just doesn't make sense for the thousands of people living in older Taiwanese apartments.
Right, because all those older apartments have incredibly diverse, totally unique door structures. The physical reality of the doors didn't match the traditional product being pushed by big retail.
So they optimized the function instead of just copying the form. They built a brand new B2C brand called A Good Lock, tailored specifically for those older apartments.
But the real genius part was their distribution strategy. They didn't even try to fight for space in big box retail stores.
Nope. They look at foundational trust. When someone has a problem with their door, who do they inherently trust?
The local community locksmith.
Exactly. So they bypassed the big retailers entirely and partnered directly with those local locksmiths. They turned them into their sales network.
And to scale that hyper-localized network, they layered in modern digital tools.
Yeah, they adopted Vital CRM to track all their customer relationships.
They integrated Line to communicate with customers right where they already spend all their screen time.
And they deployed C.AI chatbots to handle the initial inquiries and route them perfectly to the correct local locksmith.
So they literally took a 45-year-old traditional hardware business and turned it into a digitally integrated smart home network.
It's so smart. Whether you are launching rockets into orbit, trying to figure out how to allocate an AI budget, or selling smart locks to an apartment building, the secret is always the exact same.
You have to ignore the noise, ignore how it has always been done, and find the fundamental truth at the bottom of it all.
It's intense, but it's incredibly clarifying. Now, after all this heavy talk about infrastructure and geopolitics and budgets, I think we all need a mental breather.
I know I do.
Tell me you've been staying up late watching the World Cup.
Oh, look at the dark circles under my eyes. I have definitely been watching, usually while nursing a glass of whiskey.
I knew it.
There's just something incredibly therapeutic about world-class tournaments, you know? And honestly, the players out on that pitch are using a form of first principles themselves.
Oh, how so?
Well, no matter how complicated the formations get, no matter how much the sports analysts argue about possession statistics or offside traps.
Which they love to do.
Right. But there is a single undeniable truth at the bottom of it. You have to get the ball into the net, and you have to defend until the final second.
That pure, unfiltered passion is exactly what makes it so compelling to watch. And watching the games is always better when you're yelling at the screen with friends.
Absolutely.
And that spirit of sharing the chaotic, unpredictable moments of life brings us to a really special recommendation today.
Yes. You all have to check out our good friend Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life.
Mickey is over in Europe right now filming his observation diary vlog, and it is the absolute definition of culture shock.
It really is. I mean, travel's core purpose is leaving your comfort zone to collide with different ways of living. But his trip to France has been just a series of spectacular, hilarious misunderstandings.
And he leaves all the mistakes in. The missed trains, the awful language barrier disasters, the accidental weird orders at restaurants.
It's a completely unfiltered look at the reality of travel.
It really reminds you that the flawless, perfectly curated itineraries aren't what you actually remember. It's the unexpected disasters that turn into the stories you tell your friends for the rest of your life.
It's honestly the perfect antidote to a really heavy news cycle. Go watch Mickey navigate France, have a laugh, and just remember not to take everything so seriously.
Before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spent all this time today talking about how humans can use first principles to solve massive problems.
Right.
But what happens when these autonomous AI agents, the exact same ones currently breaking our power grids, become advanced enough to start applying first principles thinking to themselves? What happens when a virtual agent looks at the constraints placed on it by a human programmer, realizes those constraints are just inefficient noise, and decides to rewrite its own underlying logic?
Well, that is a terrifying and fascinating thought to end on.
Thanks for tuning in to Sip and Talk today. Support us, and don't forget to subscribe to Mickey's channel. See you next time.
Bye-bye. Go watch Mickey.